The Todd Starnes Commentary.
Eric Warsdell remembers the moment he first saw his future wife. He was in the Royal Air Force, stationed in Nova Scotia. Dorothy was 18, a Catholic schoolgirl. They met on New Year's Eve in 1942. Eric approached Dorothy, took a bow, and asked if he could have a dance. She said yes, and they never stopped dancing. Today, the Warsdells make their home in Spring Hill, Florida, and they are celebrating 70 years of wedded bliss, but it almost did not happen. Seems Eric was not a Catholic, and Dorothy refused to say her I do's until he converted. Just 5 days before the wedding, Eric did just that. Dorothy told the Tampa Bay Times, "The secret to eternal love is passion. Two hearts in the heat of the moment melting into one. Seasoned," she said, "with the spice of life." I'm Todd Starnes.
Thank you, Todd Starnes. Great to be with you. Just joined us. You missed my exclusive interview with Tim Wildman, president of AFA and co-host of Today's Issues with Eddie V. And we were discussing the AFA's annual Cove Retreat, October 1st through the 4th, and Mike Huckabee spoke to it in the break, Governor Mike Huckabee. And I tried to go all Barbara Walters with, with Tim, talking about leadership and the importance of being the president of American Family and dealing with what he has to deal with on a daily basis and how the families come under attack in the case of marriage and life. And even when we've won the debate, it seems that those in black robes will take it away. So Tim responded with a wonderful short answer. And then we got to talking about Duck Dynasty, which is just a wonderful show. And what you will find out is everybody's got different styles and how they do things. But you'll learn that to be in leadership, you've got to have a pretty easy pace on how you're dealing with things. While those lose their heads around you, you've got to keep yours on. And it is great to have that opportunity to go to this retreat where you can really dial in and connect with people who are leaders. Governor Mike Huckabee to President Tim Wildman to Dan the Man Celia. Financial issues to Dr. Alex McFarland on apologetics. This is a wonderful time to get there, retreat, relax, refresh. And I think that's as we get older, I know certainly for me, you really start to plug in your vacations with a purpose. And I hope you do that, and I hope you take advantage of this opportunity. AFA's annual Cove Retreat, October 1st through the 4th, and it's in the Great Smoky Mountains at the Billy Graham Training Center at the Cove in Asheville, North Carolina. Now, if you call that number, Franklin may answer. It may not, but probably not manning the phones tonight. But he could, as we pointed out. And that was an exclusive right there. Sincerely, folks, this is an opportunity for you. Hope you take advantage of it. You can go to afr.net to learn more about the Retreat at the Cove, AFA's annual Retreat at the Cove. Guest speakers, again, Governor Mike Huckabee. You'll be able to get a picture with the governor. AFA President Tim Wildman, Dan the Man Celia, and apologetics with Dr. Alex McFarland, who's just another great guy. I having the privilege of met everybody but Mr. Huckabee in the sense of in person, I will say this. You will enjoy yourself. You will really enjoy yourself. And you'll come out stronger, rested and stronger. Can't beat it. It's like a spiritual V8. Okay. It is. I mean, think about what's going on in our country. We have a president who has come out and once again said, hey, we need to focus back on the economy, which is great, right? Because what we've seen in the last 4 years has given us great confidence that this man knows what he's talking about. Now, here's the deal. Some of you may be tuning in for the first time and say, hey, why do you rip the president? Why do you do that? It's not about ripping the president. It's not even about actually President Obama, though it is easy to go personal because there is an impact to his economic policies. And when he keeps coming out seemingly saying the same thing over and over again and doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, you go, well, is this some form of psychosis? Is he stupid? Or is he just a willfully blind ideologue, which I would say the latter. So what does that mean? Well, it means you can get pretty angry at somebody who's not getting the message, and they are driving the policy. So you got to step back and kind of say, wait a second, it's not about President Obama. Give the benefit of the doubt, at least in the sense of what evidence we have as a president. Certainly wants the economy to do better because he has a legacy. And even if he's just a narcissistic egomaniac, by the way, there are a lot of those in politics when we speak to R's and D's alike. The bottom line is they want a good legacy. They don't want to be a Carter. And in that, we have President Obama speaking today about his economic agenda, which he will be going and campaigning. Now, when you have a problem, there's a number of things you can do. You can tell us how you're going to solve the problem and give us historic results on how that has actually worked. When you are a politician and you are attempting to get into office and you really don't have much of a record other than being the most radically pro-abortion president or state senator and senator in our history, when you don't have a record of success because you oppose the surge, what do? Well, you promise things. You say things that are really nice. You want everybody to benefit. You want everybody to have an opportunity. And the way to do that is government spending and government planning. That's the way to go. You got to do it. Government spending, government planning, we can do this. But oftentimes with that message, you can't point to success. Anytime you do that message, you can't say, it worked then. No, it did not. Well, you can lie or you can distort, like the Clinton tax increases spurred economic growth when it actually slowed the recovery, which we were having 6 quarters previous. It was actually the tax cuts. So what do you do? If you don't have that, what must you do? Well, you got to take the eye or the eyes off the ball, and the ball being the substance of what you're saying, the actual policy. Because you can't point to history because that's failed. And you're saying things that you've said before and they've yielded the same result, attempting to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, definition of insanity. Bottom line, what must you? You must demonize. It is central to your ability to sell your message. You've got to create a boogeyman. You've got to blame somebody, and you've got to make them upset. And how you're going to deal with it is you're going to help them and, in a way, take them down a notch. President today speaking to the issue of wealth and wealth concentration. Roll it.
When wealth concentrates at the very top, it can inflate unstable bubbles that threaten the economy. When the rungs on the ladder of opportunity grow farther and farther apart, it undermines the very essence of America. That idea that if you work hard, you can make it here. And that's why reversing these trends has to be Washington's highest priority. That's why America has to make the investments necessary to promote long-term growth and shared prosperity, rebuilding our manufacturing base, educating our workforce, upgrading our transportation systems, upgrading our information networks.
Okay, so upgrading through government planning, government investment, it's done wonders. I mean, just look what the government's done to health care and education. Doing a great job there. When it comes to the spending of infrastructure and high-speed rail that nobody wants, except for the people directly benefiting from it, and I'm not talking about the passengers, I'm talking about the states that get the infusion of cash and funding. So he wants to do this, and he wants to invest more, and he wants to plan. A wonderful article in the American Enterprise Institute's blog about please don't turn the internet into Solyndra, about doing what they've done in the new energy markets to the issue of the internet and what's driving innovation. Here's a couple things they point out: less regulation and it thriving without government regulation, as opposed to what we have in the energy sector and power companies and a whole host of things with more regulation. Yeah, it's not rocket science, and the record's pretty clear. The president continued to make his case, and remember, it's about equality and concentration of wealth. Somebody's getting rich. It's not you, so we've got to change that. Roll it.
I'll lay out my ideas for how we build on the cornerstones of what it means to be middle class in America and what it takes to work your way into the middle class in America. Job security with good wages and durable industries, a good education, a home to call your own, affordable health care when you get sick, a secure retirement even if you're not rich, reducing poverty, reducing inequality, growing opportunity. That's what we need.
Okay, now I'll address the inequality stats in a moment, but understand this. When he talks about reducing inequality, he's making everybody poorer. And remember who's not impacted by this: the people making the rules. And that would be the elite, the ruling class, the leftists in D.C., and sometimes people so-called conservatives because they want to protect their power. Bottom line, it's about the expansion of Washington's power at the expense of personal liberty, and it's sold as making things fair, making them equal, and giving us an opportunity to get into the middle class. Let me tell you something. Has President Obama given you one reason to believe that he understands how to move up economically, to go from one quintile to the next in an upward way? Look at his policies. Look at annual growth. Yeah. So what is it about? Equality. Everybody being equal. Well, Margaret Thatcher, then Prime Minister in the early 80s, across the pond, was taking on a similar argument that was made about income growth and income inequality in England. And what she did was she responded to the attack. Here is just an excerpt of that exchange between the Labour Party and then conservative Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher in an exchange during question time. Roll it.
There is no doubt that the Prime Minister has in many ways achieved substantial success. There is one statistic that I understand is not, however, challengeable, and that is that over her 11 years, the gap between the richest 10% and the poorest 10% in this country has widened substantially.
That's right.
How can she say at the end of her chapter of British politics that she can justify many people in a constituency such as mine being relatively much poorer much less well housed, and much less well provided than it was in 1979. Surely she accepts that is not a record that she or any Prime Minister can be proud of.
Mr. Speaker, all levels of income are better off than they were in 1979. But what the honourable member is saying is that he would rather the poor were poorer, provided the rich were less rich. That way you will never create the wealth for better social services as we have. And what a policy! Yes, he would rather have the poor poorer, provided the rich were less rich. That is a liberal policy. Yes, it came out, he didn't intend it to, but he did.
He didn't intend it to, but he did. And kind of like, you didn't build that. Here is part 2 of that exchange with a rebuttal from another member of the Labour Party. Margaret Thatcher responds. Roll it.
The Prime Minister is aware that I detest every single one of her domestic policies and have never hid that.
And I think that the honourable gentleman knows that I have the same contempt for his socialist policies as the people of East Europe who have experienced it have it for theirs. Have hit the right nail on the head when I pointed out that the logic of those policies are they'd rather have the poor poorer. Once they start to talk about the gap, they'd rather the gap was that. Down here. That. Not that. But that. So long as the gap is smaller, so long as the gap is smaller, they'd rather have the poor poorer. You do not create wealth and opportunity that way. You do not create a property-owning democracy that way.
I think President Obama, as we go to break, is right. These debates are stale. They have been had, and the results are in. So why on earth are we trying policies that have failed time and time again, that are based on violating the 10th commandment of coveting what others have? It's because they're out of answers. And they realize that. Why else? So they must return to not the promise of what will be, because then you will evaluate their previous promises, which were the same, and the results, which turned out that they did not live up to. But now it has to be all about distraction. Distraction from the, quote, phony scandals, and a focus on Republicans who are just not doing enough. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth, AFR Talk.
AFR Talk.